Man, it's hot out here. Must be about 95 degrees. Yeah, just like New Orleans, man. We get all that humidity, you know. It's pretty hot. But the music cools it off. Then it heats it up. Then it cools it off again.
The whole vibe down in New Orleans is just you're just surrounded by music. It's not just rock and roll. It's not just hip hop. It's not a category. It's just good music.
We got our start in New Orleans. It's always been a big part of what we do.
It was the way people celebrated and the strong music and food culture. Even the name. The name came from a Dr. John record, designatively Bonnaroo. Bonnaroo is a Creole slang word for good stuff.
It's decadent in the best way. You're getting your fill of music and fun and the whole experience.
Everybody says New Orleans feels like a different country, sometimes feels like a different planet.
And it's definitely, comes out of that New Orleans tradition of living for the moment. And if you think about it, what a festival is, experiencing each individual moment to its fullest.
When I first was aware of Superfly before Bonnaroo was New Orleans Jazz Fest, the spine of that festival is collaboration and improvisation and playing for the moment. So I think it's really great that as Bonnaroo's grown by leaps and bounds every year, it still holds that idea as its core.
That's my most fun thing I could do, is play with, real New Orleans guys I don't get to play with that often, like, guys like George Porter. And, if I go see Zigaboo Modeliste and he sees me in the crowd, he tells me to sit right next to him. And he brings me up to the stage. Russell Batiste, who plays with the Funky Meters, we're good friends, and he, if he sees me in the crowd, he's like, Adam, get up here, it's that kind of thing. So just that community of musicians, and I'm just all about it.
Whether it's the Preservation Hall Jazz Band or whether it's Lil Wayne, there's a feel and a looseness and a bounce that music from New Orleans has that makes it very distinctive.
I became friends with Ben Jaffe, whose parents started the Preservation Hall and the Preservation Hall Jazz Band in 1959 or 1960. And he's a guy he's actually a great example and a great embodiment of Bonnaroo. Here's a guy who's steeped in tradition, grew up learning traditional jazz and New Orleans jazz, yet he's a guy who loves Mos Def and loves Jay-Z and My Morning Jacket.
Obviously, the Meters and the Neville Brothers and Dr. John and so many of the architects of that New Orleans sound have all come and been tremendously well received at Bonnaroo.
It's like, where do you start? Anders Osborne, trombone shorty.
Walter Wolfman Washington, musical gem, Dirty Dozen Brass Band, best live band ever. Alan Toussaint, one of the greatest American songwriters. Big Frida, Katie Redd, all the great New Orleans bounce acts. John Cleary, all the incredible drummers. Stanton Moore, Johnny Vodakovich, Terrence Higgins, Zigaboo, of course. There's just amazing artists everywhere. Galactic's played the festival more times than any other band, and that makes sense because they bring that real deal New Orleans party everywhere they go. And you never know who's going to show up with them. You never know who's going to walk out on stage next. And it's one of those things where you close your eyes and you could absolutely be at New Orleans at Tipitina's.
I just think, from top down, it's a rhythmic city that sets it apart.
For me, being a bass player, my job is to touch bases with the drummer and become a team. That's what I call a pocket. And when the bass and drums is in the same pocket, then all the other players and all the other parts of the music can go wherever it wants to go, because we holding it down. So everybody always, no matter how far out they go, they got somewhere to come back to, because somebody's here, somebody's at home.
Before there was performers and audience clapping, there was this thing, it was this all-inclusive thing where the musicians were playing, the people were dancing, there's call and response between the crowd. That's African tradition, and that, exists in New Orleans, and it's spread to the rest of the world.
Musicians on stage and the people in the audience are feeding off the same energy, the same inspiration and the same spontaneity. Everybody's in it together. I think that's one of the common threads of Bonnaroo and Jazz Fest. It doesn't feel like there's much of a separation between artist and audience.
That's what these guys brought to Bonnaroo from the beginning, that this was more than just, let's put on a show and have people come and sit and watch. There's not another place that's like New Orleans in terms of having music at the center of something that's a lot larger.
Mardi Gras is a favorite time.
See, you don't know